Hi folks, hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you and love to everybody out there. Don't forget my website, jasonburnspreacher.com, jasonburnspreacher.com, jasonburnspreacher.com. Um, I just want to talk about the value of church history today, quite a bit about the history of the Westminster Confession. And I've read about 50 pages or about 40 pages of a book. Read some of the Westminster Confession today. I read Shaw's exposition of the Westminster Confession, and but not just the Westminster Standard, but I began to read about the history of how the Westminster Confession of Faith came about. And what the story so far is I'm in the uh, mid 1500s, and then late 1500s, um, and looking at all I'm reading about at the moment the conflict between the Puritans and between the Erastians and High Churchmen, and the battle that was going on within the Church of England, trying to reform it into a more biblical pattern, and vice versa. And a couple of thoughts that I had. One is that we're so in our secular culture, we've changed so much. Mid 1500s to the end of the 1500s, the debates were about what the Bible taught, and even the Queen, even the statesmen, Parliament were all involved in these biblical discussions. The culture is more bothered about, the news today was that two gay guys were in Sainsbury's and they were holding hands, and the security guard told them not to do that, and now there's a big hoo-ha about that. So as a secular culture, we're more interested in that rather than debate the Word of God and issues about the Word of God. And it shows how much as a culture we've slid, and how much as a culture and as church we've abandoned biblical principles and don't think of the Bible as we should. So that was my thought about reading about the history of the Westminster Divines so far. I've not got to the specific history of the Westminster Divines. I've been reading just prior to that. That's what the book's doing, is going looking at it from a more wider perspective of the history of the Divines. So that's good. I enjoy that. But the other thing is, church history is so valuable. It's valuable as a pastor. It's valuable as an apologist. It's valuable as a missionary. Take the debates with Bart Ehrman. In history, you can answer some of the things that he comes up with. If you know the early church fathers, if you know the various movements of the time, Muslim apologists, if you know the church history, you can able to deal with them in a better way. For example, I read a PhD not so long ago concerning an apologist in the time of the 10th century concerning Islamic apologetics concerning the Trinity, and Christian apologetics concerning the Trinity, and what the Christians were saying, all about church history, the way the church in the Middle East at the time was kind of dealing with the Islamic resurgence in the Middle East of the 10th and 11th century AD. And so knowing that history is really helpful today to be able to answer Muslims. Having an eye for history helps you to check things. I love Jay Smith, but who's a Christian apologist against Islam. He might say something and you check it historically, and it's not exactly as accurate as he might say. He's an excellent scholar, excellent apologist, but what I'm saying is, have an eye for history and you're willing to read sources, then it gives you a good way of checking even your own side, whether they're correct or not. And also, a lot of the movements that we see now, they've already been before, and so they're just reinventing the wheel. So if you know church history of the past, you can see the problems arising now, and you can be able to counteract them. Recommend on church history. I would recommend reading Chaff's. A standard work is Walker's History of the Christian Church. Yeah, those are some of the works that I would encourage you to read. Cunningham's History of the Reformation, The Theology of the Reformers, is a good book. And just read, some of the classic works like Eusebius and Banner Truth published some good books on the history of the church, and Christian Focus do too. So yeah, value church history. It's a really important resource for you in your walk with God and in your defending of the faith. All right, take care. God bless you.